How do you guys like my new cologne? Oh, you can't smell it. But if we had scratch and sniff cards, like they did with polyester, we could have the smell of the cologne that I'm wearing. Or you could buy it yourself if we get them as a sponsor. Welcome to the Billy Crystal Hour. I have learned and have somehow found out information about Billy Crystal that I had no idea, which is why I do this show. It's really for me. I mean, I like to do these deep dives on people that I think I know, and then I find out I really know about 50% of their life, which is odd, considering how exposed they've been to the media and how close I am to the third rail, so to speak, in terms of, hello, I hit the like. Did you? Yeah, you could hit the like. Thanks, Ohio Pat. That helps. You could subscribe too, which wouldn't kill you, you fat bastards that are out there. The subscription thing, again, don't ask me how it works, but apparently it's important to YouTube, who are now coming around and starting to loosen up their death grip on creators. Burnt tire scent is the one, Sue. That's the one I'm using. You look marvelous, Devin. Sue Akoff, Roy Akoff's sisters in the house. Okay, so we're going to get into, and I mean a deep dive on Billy Crystal. There's shit here that is really, really, really unusual. And I mean that in a good way, in a weird way, and also in an unusual, secret way, hence the title of the series. Pew Pew, I could tell all of a sudden, just by the way the letters are tilting in your name, how fat you are. But hold on. Let's make sure we subscribe to this thing and push the like button. I'm just going to wait over here and look at some stuff while you do that. Oh, and they're making like buttons. They're doing it. Okay, they're pushing the subscription button, hitting the like button. This is going very well. Very happy with the results so far. And we're back. Okay, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you, Alana. Thank you, Yosemite Sam, Alicia Boggs, for coming by. But I must point out one thing. The show does have a sponsor. Thank the Lord, Mel Torme, my God and Savior, the Velvet Fog, because this channel needs sponsorship. And the product is Biltong USA right here. I have switched to this flavor. Again, I don't know if they're called flavors or styles or whatever, but this one here, Angus, this is just my take on it, is less vinegary than the other one, the Wagyu one. And this is my new Biltong of choice, my BOC, as they say on the street. Biltong USA, designed by the king of all Biltong, Angus Biltong, the descendant of Mo Angus Biltong of South Africa, lives in Texas, new American immigrant, 5 children, homeschooling. The wife works with them, family business. You can support them, show them how much you welcome their new presence in the United States, and especially in the great state of Texas. I think they're in Prairie, Texas. Not really sure where that is, but I'm sure my friends in Texas will school me on it as quickly as I put down the bag. Texas is a big place, and there's all kinds of little places. I had a partner from Monahans, Texas, and I think it was East Texas. Mark Dorset was my co-producer on the MTV magazine, my co-publisher. He was from a little town called Monahans, Texas, in the Hill Country, I think, or East Texas. I think that's where he was, east of LBJ World. That being said, you can get 10% off with the secret code Mark G. Try this. There's many different things, many different flavors, many different styles. I like to nuke it for about 5 seconds just to get it loosey-goosey and get the juicy-goosey flowing. But it is like the filet mignon of beef jerky. I've said this before. People are starting to order it who watch this show. They're hitting me up on Twitter, at Lordbuckly, by the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter, which I'm sure a lot of you do anyway. But people are commenting on it. I'm kind of shocked that people are doing what I'm saying. But nevertheless, I dig it. It's getting me through the playoffs. I have to have two things in my life at this point: protein and fiber. This is the protein. The fiber is some really awful cereal called Fiber Bran. Apparently, I'm forced to eat that now. Raisin Bran's not good enough. I got to eat Fiber Bran. My father ate grape nuts. Nobody touched it. It was in the closet for 17 years. He was the only one that ever ate the grape nuts. They were absolutely unedible, or inedible or unedible. Anyway, Fiber One might be in that galaxy, but this is not. This is absolutely delicious. Eat it out of the bag. You don't need it hot. You don't need it warm. You can eat it cold. You can eat it dry. You can eat it any way you want. I mixed it with eggs last week. It was like a bacon and egg omelet. Really check it out. 10% off. Mark G. I think you'll love it. Just get one bag. Don't be a psycho and order 20. Just get one, and I think it'll open the door for you. Okay. That being said, now we got that out of the way. Once my teeth are done, I'll consider it. Yeah, well, you could chew it with somebody else's teeth and they could spit it into your mouth. Okay, today we're going to talk about Billy Crystal. Now, Billy Crystal, I just want to remind people who Billy Crystal is by showing you this series of movie posters that we're going to look at now, and then we'll get back to them later on. This is just some visual part of the show. This is from Soap. This was the TV show in the 70s where he played a gay character. It was a parody of a soap. He played a cat named Jodie Dallas, rather, speaking of Dallas. It was a parody of a daytime soap. It went from 77 to 81. So we have that to look forward to. This is his first, I want to say one of his first movies. This came after This is Spinal Tap, where he played a small part of Morty the Mime. But this is like a buddy cop film with Gregory Hines, the great hoofer, set in Chicago. It's a good cop picture. They're trying to retire to Florida. Al Gonzalez gave this 2 bullets up in 2011. The movie came out in 1986. Plays Danny Costanzo, if I remember correctly, Detective Danny Costanzo. It's a fun, buddy cop film. 1987, he does this film called Throw Momma from the Train. DeVito directs it. Many of you people remember that hysterical movie with the brilliant actress who plays his mother, and they're trying to kill her a million times. To Take Off on Strangers on a Train, the Hitchcock movie. $14 million budget, grosses $58 million, comes out December 87. 87, that same year, The Princess Bride, directed by Rob Reiner, where he plays Miracle Max. Most people remember this movie, The Princess Bride. And okay, just wanted to mute that. There was a siren going by. Then 1989, When Harry Met Sally comes out, and that really opens and blows out the doors. Meg Ryan, of course, Carrie Fisher, Bruno Kirby, written by Nora Ephron. It's kind of her first attempt at this. She will later do Sleepless in Seattle, and You've Got Mail, much more bigger budgeted films, but with higher production value than this. But we see the beginnings of Nora Ephron's writing career. But Harry Met Sally was a low budget thing by a company that Rob Reiner was starting to put together called Castle Rock. It grossed over $100 million. It was a cultural milestone in a lot of ways. When the famous line by the older woman in Katz's Deli in New York, thank you, resubscribe. Yeah, they're going to knock you out. And Katz's Deli, where she says, I'll have what she's having, after Meg Ryan fakes an orgasm. We'll get into this, maybe come back around to this thing. That's Rob Reiner's mother who actually did that line. This grosses $100 million, costs $16 million, and actually, oddly enough, the director of photography was an unknown guy named Barry Sonnenfeld, who will later do Get Shorty, Addams Family, Men in Black as a director. This is the guy they're using as a DP. So he plays Harry Burns in this movie. 1990, does a thing called Midnight Train to Moscow. I don't know. I doubt if we have a picture of that. It is a one-man show that he does in Moscow before the wall comes down. Very strange HBO project. I'll try to discuss it a little later. Then he hosts the Oscars after that, as you well. City Slickers comes out 1991. Now, City Slickers is a $26 million budget. It goes through the roof, making like $200 million with Jack Palance, who wins the Oscar, Best Supporting Actor at the time. So that's City Slickers. And then I think some other things. Mr. Saturday Night he does, 92. 97, he's got a part in the Woody Allen thing, Deconstructing Harry. And then 99, the big one, Analyze This with Robert De Niro, comes out March 5th, 1999. Huge hit, $30 million budget, grosses over 200 million. Really a big one. We'll talk about it when we get up to that period of time in the story. I just wanted to give you a little sample of Billy's work in film. And then in 2001, we have a final thing called 61 with Thomas Jane and Barry Pepper. That's Mantle and Maris, 7 and 9 on the left and right, respectively. Directed by Billy Crystal and produced by Ross Greenberg over at HBO, who was involved in one of my projects at HBO. Thomas is an old friend, and we'll get into that when we get up to that. Okay, so then let's go back. Let's go back to how this crazy thing started. Billy Crystal is born 1948. His family lives in the Bronx. This is him a couple of years later in Long Beach. But at this point, 1948, he's born at Doctors Hospital. Now, Doctors Hospital is up in Yorkville, which is the German section of the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And it's the best hospital in New York. My grandfather used to go there. It's on the Upper East Side. It's a real boutique hospital. I don't know why he was there, but his family is kind of from the Bronx. But they're from the Bronx via Austria and Russia, like many of us. His grandmother, Susie Gabler, his grandfather was Jules Gabler. He was Austrian. But by the way, this is really an odd thing. His grandfather, Jules Gabler, had 2 albino twin brothers. I've never heard of that before. I don't have a picture of them. I wish I did. But his family, obviously Eastern European Jews who come over, and once he's born, they kind of move pretty quickly to maybe we have a picture of the 2. Yeah, here they are. That's that's Jack Crystal and his mother, Helen, Billy's mother, Helen. Jack Crystal and her, and this is really right out of one of these Harry Met Sally movies. Jack Crystal goes to St. John's Law School. He graduates with a law degree, never uses it. And he works in the office in the law department of Macy's on 34th Street. She works in the perfume department. They meet up and they become instant boyfriend and girlfriend and get married. The mother, Helen, on the right, this is the 2 of them. That's Helen and Jack left and right. Helen is the voice of Minnie Mouse in the Macy's Day Parade every year. She's inside of Minnie Mouse on the float of the Macy's Day Parade, of their float of Mickey and Minnie Mouse. Very interesting. She does dabble in theater. He never uses his law degree. Here's a picture of Jack Crystal. Now, Jack Crystal will end up running the Commodore Music Store. Now, the Commodore Music Store, this is a real fascinating story. So I have to digress here. We'll get to Billy in a second. He's only a baby at this point, so don't worry about it. Jack Crystal runs the Commodore Music Store on 42nd Street. And it's a tiny little jazz record store owned by his brother-in-law, a guy named Milt Gabler. This is Milt Gabler. Milt Gabler will play an interesting part in this story because Milt Gabler is the brother of Jack's wife and Billy Crystal's mother. This is Helen Gabler, Billy's mother, on the left, and that's Uncle Milton on the right. Now you say, well, why would Milton be important? Well, in 1938, Milt Gabler invents United Hot Record Club of America, the first mail-order record company in America with a negative option on it, like the Columbia House Record and Tape Club. that many of you grew up with in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I know I did. He becomes a marketing genius in terms of records. So he owns Commodore Records, the store, the Commodore Record store, and he spins off into a label called Commodore Records. And you say, why is Commodore Records important? Well, Commodore Records put out a single called Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday. And the flip side was Fine and Mellow, by the way. Strange Fruit was a song that Abel Meeropol wrote. Abel Meeropol being the father, the adopted father of Robert Meeropol and his brother. Robert Meeropol and his brother were adopted by Abel Meeropol, who was a school teacher, and he wrote a song called Strange Fruit. Strange Fruit would not be released because it was, this is Billie Holiday, Lady Day, as many people know who are jazz aficionados. Strange Fruit would not be released by her label, which was Columbia Records, because it was so controversial. Strange Fruit is a slang word for lynched bodies hanging from trees in the South. Again, keep in mind, this is 1938, 1940 in there. This is Billie Holiday. That's a Strange Fruit. So Strange Fruit is released by Milt Gabler on Commodore Records. As I said, the song written by Abel Meeropol, an avowed communist, and Robert Meeropol and his brother are adopted by Abel Meeropol because they're orphans. And you go, well, why are they orphans, Mark? What happened to Robert Meeropol's parents? Well, Robert Meeropol's parents were the Rosenbergs, and they were electrocuted at Sing Sing for selling the atom bomb to the Soviets. So they didn't have any parents; they were orphans because Julius and Ethel Rosenberg went to the hot seat. So the kids were adopted. Just to give backstory on this, were adopted by Abel Meeropol, who wrote Strange Fruit. Now, Strange Fruit is not the only thing that Milt Gabler is famous for. Milt Gabler co-wrote and owned the copyright to an incredible song called Choo Choo Boogie, Take Me Right Back to the Tracks, Jack. He wrote that in 1946. It was released by Louis Jordan and the Timpani Five, one of the greatest boogie woogie rhythm and blues songs of all time, and it may have led to the birth of rock and roll. Now you say, well, what could boogie woogie, how could that lead to rock and roll? Well, listen to Choo Choo Boogie as loud as you can, and listen to Louis Jordan, and you'll begin to hear the sounds of rock and roll. And Milt Gabler was not done, because he, 10 years later, or 8 years later, he released a song that he wrote called Rock Around the Clock with Bill Haley and the Comets. And that's why Milt Gabler was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, people. This is, again, Billy Crystal's uncle, and nobody knows about this. He becomes an executive at Decca Records and becomes an A&R guy there for 30 years. He produces over 30 records that grossed 1 million copies each, sold 1 million copies each, not a total. And Billy Crystal's babysitter, is the reason I'm telling you this whole fakakta story, was Billie Holiday. And Billie Holiday would take him to the movies at the Fillmore East when it was a movie theater. And maybe there's another picture of Billie we could show here. That's Billie with her boxer, which one of the most beautiful dogs I've ever seen. So he called her Miss Billie, and she called him Mr. Billy. Billy's dad, his dad, Jack Crystal, if we can get back to Jack Crystal, produced her concerts, and she took him to the movies while these concerts, after the concerts were over, and she would babysit him at home. A couple of the concerts were right there in Manhattan on the Lower East Side, but she famously took him to see a movie called Shane. And at the end of the movie, this little boy is yelling, "Come back, Shane, come back, Shane." And she leans into Billy Crystal and whispers into his ear, "He ain't never coming back." And Billy Crystal never forgot that, nor did he forget who Shane was, who the performer was. He will later use Jack Palance in that part in City Slickers. Yeah, he will later, who dies on page 64, by the way, not to give it away. What an incredibly insane world. Now, Billy Crystal plays clarinet as a kid, so they get him a clarinet teacher. Clarinet teacher, if we have a photo of this guy with a clarinet, I'll explain who his teacher is, because this becomes really strange. His teacher is the legendary clarinet player, Pee Wee Russell, shown here, one of the great legends of Dixieland jazz, because he's part of the record world that his father and Uncle Milt live in. They live in a jazz world. In fact, the world is so small in terms of this jazz world that they literally come over his house all the time. In 1956, May 30th, 1956, Billy Crystal gets taken to his first Yankee game. And he is enamored with the Yankees because his whole family's from the Bronx. There's no Mets yet. The Dodgers are leaving the next year to go to LA, which I'm going to watch them at some point this week. But he goes to Yankee Stadium. And how does he go to Yankee Stadium? Because Louis Armstrong gives his father his box seats. And if you got a shot of Louis Armstrong, this is who Louis Armstrong was. Louis Armstrong was such an enormous talent that he had his own box seats at Yankee Stadium, making $1 million a year. I don't know if the Yankees gave it to him or the label gave it to him, but he gives it to Jack Crystal and he gives it to Billy Crystal. And Billy Crystal has a love affair with Mickey Mantle. I mean, he worships the ground Mickey Mantle walks on, number 7, and this will come back around a little later. But on that particular day, he has a program, and he's stunned to be in Yankee Stadium. Here's a shot of Satchmo for those people who don't remember Satchmo. But they take there's a Satchmo there. It's his box seats, and he's taken by his father. He can't even believe he's in Yankee Stadium. His father takes him into the Yankee clubhouse where the starting pitcher is being worked on the massage table, and it's doubtful whether this particular pitcher is going to pitch that day. And he says sarcastically, who's pitching today? And this guy yells out, "You are, kids, suit up." And it's Casey Stengel, the manager of the Yankees, in the clubhouse. So they pass around this program, and every one of the Yankees signs it for Billy Crystal. This is this is 1956. So he's like 8 years old. You know, I mean, this is Billy Crystal here. Yeah, it's around that time, I think. He's in 6th grade here, maybe a little younger. But yeah, maybe a little bit around that period of time. He's already a wise guy, and he can't believe that he's in the Bronx. He can't believe that all these people have signed his program, and he becomes a lifelong Mickey Mantle fan, Yankee fan, legendary Yankee fan, and will later become friends with Mickey Mantle, which we'll get to at that point. The family goes to the Catskills for the summer, and they go to Kutcher's Country Club, which a lot of people go to. My grandfather used to go to the Concord, but there were people who went to Kutcher's. You went to different places. So they went to the Kutcher's, where he saw a guy named Wilt Chamberlain playing with the Harlem Globetrotters. Think about that. Wilt Chamberlain, he gets to see, and Billy becomes a basketball player as well. He will make his own basketball team in high school and become a super duper basketball player and a super duper baseball player. But what they see at Kutcher's, what Billy sees, is his first stand-up comic, and he's hooked. He sees this guy or a couple of guys doing stand-up comedy. And when they get back to, they've moved to Long Beach, which is not Long Beach, California, Long Beach on Long Island, next to Lido Beach and Manhattan Beach, all the way down there. I don't know about the hats. I'm doing a show over here, Kudos. Asking me about my hats. I'm busy right now. So him and his two, thank you, Alicia. Thank you so much. Him and his two brothers. He's got 2 older brothers, and Richard and the other brother, Joel. the three of them begin performing sketches in the living room of their family. Now, the living room is not just his parents. The living room is filled with like 25 extended family members on the weekends who come to this house in Long Beach. So it's not like just kibitzing or riffing in the kitchen. They're literally putting on shows. Now, where do they get the shows? The father and Gabler, being in the record business, give Billy Crystal and his brothers every single comedy album known to man. And they go home where they live in their bedroom and they play and memorize and lip sync every single comedy album that's out, The Button Up Mind of Bob Newhart, Jonathan Winters. They memorize and perform from the records for the rest of the extended family. This is the beginning of his comedy career. He's at the age of 9 at this point where he's starting to do this. And this is him getting laughs. And it's also him learning and staying up late with his parents and watching the comics on Ed Sullivan, which a lot of comic kids did. You've gone to Lido Beach. You know what it's like, Ellie. So the living room is filled with, these Jews from Eastern Europe who love to laugh. Now he goes to junior high school, and the junior high school, after he gets out of elementary school, I don't know if we have a shot there, but he gets out of elementary school, and there's 3 elementary schools get spilled into one school. So his class in elementary school, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, like maybe 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade, already has 500 kids in the class at that grade level, and then 500, 500, 500. So the school's got like 2,000 or 2,500 kids in the school. He does a variety show. He gets hooked up and performs in this variety show. And what he does is memorize a Jonathan Winters album and perform it before 1,500 to 1,200 to 1,500 students, a huge audience. You know, for someone who's just dabbling in stand-up comedy, he's got the chops, and he's also got the material, and they think it's his. But he's memorized the entire album, and he has no regrets. He doesn't. He admits that he did it, but not to anybody of importance. Anyway, so he goes to the family doctor, this guy, Dr. Griboff. And Griboff is the first cousin of a unusual, obscure comic named Don Rickles. And Griboff can't believe that he hasn't grown anything. He's literally like 4 feet tall. And they're freaking out because the brothers are really tall. The father's a normal height. So the doctor starts giving him food to eat and recipes to follow and menus to eat. And he starts stuffing his fat face. Instead of growing upward, he starts growing outward. And his face starts getting rounder and rounder like a moon face. And they start calling him Face. At least the black jazz guys do that hang around the house. Now he's doing this, and he's not growing, and he's getting really upset. But he's got like short boy syndrome because his brothers are taller. His brothers are both athletic. He's the third one to come up in the ranks, so he begins to go crazy sports wise. This is them obviously later on, but that's the dad. This must be like 1960. 61-ish. Those are the two brothers there with Billy Crystal in the middle with Jack Crystal on the right. So Jack Crystal, Billy begins to make his high school team as a varsity player for 4 years, baseball and basketball. This is him on the varsity team. Even when he was a sophomore, he was already becoming the captain of the Long Beach High School baseball team, hitting .336. The best player in the league, just dedicated his life to baseball, wanted to be a second baseman for the Yankees. And it was possible to do that despite his diminutive size. I mean, second basemen are not the tallest people in the world, although Jeff Kent was pretty tall. There were some tall second basemen, but Billy Crystal was the real deal when it came to playing high school baseball and high school basketball. I think he played soccer too, but all he cared about was baseball. And the brothers were high school stars before him, so it was like the third Crystal coming up the line. And by the way, his name was Crystal, as was Jack Crystal, and they must have changed it when they came from Europe. But that was his name, and possibly one of the worst weeks of his life, according to Billy, was October 6, 1963. And it's ironic because it was the greatest week of my life. The worst week of his life turned out to be the greatest week of my life. Isn't that weird? And that week is when the Los Angeles Dodgers swept the Yankees in 4 games, led by Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale. He couldn't believe it. He spiraled into a depression while I was celebrating not too far away. Was the greatest week of my life. That sweep was unexpected. I didn't see it coming. But he didn't see it coming either. And it was really unbelievably depressing for him as a Yankee fan. Not as depressing as what's going to happen next, because his father loses the Commodore record shop. It gets sold and taken over because of all the giant record stores that begin to open up at that time. These giant record stores, I forget the name of some of them, Sam Goody and some of these other mega stores just completely crush his father's business. So his father's at home, stressed out. They don't know where they're going to get any money from. He's 15 years of age. And that's a cool shirt. Yeah. Dustin knows. Dustin knows. Glad you could make it, Dustin. He had to jump over 16 horses at the circus and then ride on one of the horses to get here in time for the show. Thank you for that money, Dustin, by the way. So anyway, his father is starting to have physical ailments from the stress. He's got 2 kids in college. Billy's 15. And he starts to have eye problems, and they go to the hospital. They put an eye patch on. He begins to get headaches. They're not really sure what's going on with his father. His father has bought a new car the year before, a Plymouth Belvedere, gray on gray, 2-tone. And he's stressed out because of the income thing. Well, it turns out that he goes bowling that night with his wife, and they would go bowling together. Him and Helen, Jack and Helen, would go bowling. They were in the theater together, doing a lot of stuff together as a couple. He goes bowling, and he says he gets a for bowling aficionados. I know this might mean something to them. He gets a 4-7-10 split, and you know what that means, you bowlers at home. And he says, "Whoa, Helen, look at that! What a day!" And as he says that, he falls face first onto the lane and dies of a massive heart attack. This is him at a very young age. I think he's 56 years old. And his dad is dead. Billy's at home by himself, and his brothers are away at college. His mother calls him up on the phone and says, "Your father is dead." She's sobbing incoherently. He's stunned. He doesn't know what to make of it. And all of a sudden, these red lights show up, and it's the police. And they come into his house with the lights going through his bedroom, and it's really insane. And they hand him an envelope, and in that envelope is his father's baseball hat, his wedding ring, his watch, and his wallet, and that's the end of his father. It's so brutal, it's just insane. And he was so close with his father, he worshipped his father, and now he was gone in the split of a second. And their whole world is gone. He can't wrap his mind around it at the age of 15, what just happened. He tells his mother that he will dedicate his life to supporting her. But the mother hasn't worked in Macy's since they met. You know, she's been raising 3 children at home. And, you know, they have a benefit concert for his father with all the jazz guys in the city. His father has a massive write-up in the New York Times, by the way. This is not an obscure guy, his dad. I don't know if you have a copy of that obituary of Jack Crystal, but his father is written up in the New York Times, which I found to be incredibly impressive. His dad had put on jazz concerts, some of them at Jimmy Ryan's, which was on 52nd Street. His dad knew every jazz person in New York, name guys, you know. And they put together, instead of GoFundMe, they put together a jazz fundraising concert for the family. And they raised the equivalent that night, I want to say about $75,000. and the promoter steals all the money, never comes back. Nobody ever sees the guy again. Okay. So yeah, this I think is the obituary. I'm not sure. I can't really see it there, but you can find it online of Jack Crystal. The night his father dies, his uncle Milton shows up and sleeps in his room with him, where his brother used to sleep, which he said was very awkward to have your uncle take his clothes off and strip down to his boxer shorts and sleep next to you in a bed. He found that to be really jarring as well. But Uncle Milton steps up and begins to take on the role of a father figure. This is the mother's brother who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So at 15, this guy, Milton, really becomes his father figure. If you can show that picture again of Milton. Yeah, here he is. That's the defunct record store. But Milton is now, there's another photo of them in the record store. I don't know if you have it. There's a bunch of records on the right-hand side, and there's a picture of Jack going through the records with the two of them together. It's a record store that was kind of a narrow store near Grand Central, but maybe we'll find that a little later. Okay, so Uncle Milt turns him on to Sammy Davis Jr., who he is producing the records of. His influences, Billy Crystal, are really at this point Sammy Davis Jr. is, and also he at the age of 14 and 15 begins to worship Bill Cosby. He hears Noah by Bill Cosby on one of his records, and he does Noah at a talent show for his high school, again ripping off Bill Cosby, but maybe they knew that was Bill Cosby back then. I don't know. Yeah, Billy. Thank you, Patrick. Billy's definitely going to be calling me. If anybody else has seen the episodes, everyone has contacted me after each episode. Billy goes to a school to play baseball in West Virginia, and it's called Marshall University. I don't know if it exists to this day, but he wants to play baseball there, and the mother and uncle, I guess, put the money together to pay for the tuition somehow. And he goes to West Virginia. He's never even left New York. He's never even been on a plane. He flies out of LaGuardia, says goodbye to his mother. And all of a sudden, he gets to West Virginia, and they tell him, yeah, this is in high school when he was playing basketball, June 1965. Now, Lou Alcindor was at Powers Memorial in New York, making his fame as Lou Alcindor. And his class, his school will play Erasmus High. Also, Billy Crystal's team will play Erasmus. But he will later become friends with Lou Alcindor, who many people know will become Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So oddly enough, he meets Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he's this tiny little guy. It's kind of interesting. And there's a movie called Midnight in Paris with him, and he is a basketball ref in the NBA, which is kind of a weird movie, with Deborah Winger, which is another film I haven't mentioned yet. But Denise, what do you think? We have dead live Buckley shows. We've been doing this for a while, honey. Anyway, this is before he gets to West Virginia, but he gets to West Virginia and finds out the first day that the baseball program is canceled. Now he's completely crushed. And he goes to a restaurant in West Virginia. After he checks into his room, he goes to a restaurant to get something to eat. And he's got his Jewish star hanging over his shirt. And he is refused service by the owner for being Jewish. And the owner points to a sign above him and says, "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone." And he has never experienced anything like this in his life. And he can't get any food at the restaurant because he's a Jew. He's like reeling from this. This is Huntington, West Virginia. Been to a game, yeah, but this is baseball we're talking about here. So apparently he is shocked by that, and he doesn't let it throw him off the rails, because he becomes a DJ at the college radio station that they have. Yeah, this is a picture of him at WMLU, the voice of Marshall University, is Billy Crystal. So the only record they have that's jazz is some sort of Dixieland marching band album or something, he says. He calls up this guy who is the head of Columbia Records. And because of his uncle, the guy says, what do you need? And he says, I need some jazz albums. They literally send the entire Columbia Records jazz catalog to this Fakakta radio station on the college campus. And they have now, because of Billy Crystal, over 500 classic jazz albums from Columbia Records library delivered to the radio station. And he begins to put on these jazz radio shows at this radio station, two different shows, one of them more free form at night, where he begins to riff on the radio. It's very similar to the story, if you guys recall, of George Carlin, of him going to the radio station and getting a job in Tennessee. Very similar story. So he begins playing these records, and he gets a book in the mail, autographed, sent to him by his uncle, about Sammy Davis Jr., a biography signed by Sammy Davis Jr. He will later open for Sammy Davis Jr. in Las Vegas, oddly enough, not too long later. He goes back. This is the summer 1966, by the way, for people keeping score at home. And that includes Mike Schaefer and Pew Pew. We're now in 1966. He goes home for the summer, and he goes to like Lido Beach, and he sees a girl walking in a bikini on Lido Beach. And it's one of those things where you hear about this all the time. I'm going to marry that girl. Who is that girl? And his friends go, that's Janice. And he goes, what's her last name? And they go, we don't want to tell you. And they go, why not? He goes, her name is Janice Goldfinger. Dun, 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 dun. I swear to God, her name is Janice Goldfinger. And she's heard every single joke known to man about the name. But nevertheless, Billy says he's going to marry her, and he does, and he will. Here is the wedding. This is 1970, but in 1966 he begins dating her, and he doesn't want. This is a little later. He doesn't want to go back to college because he realizes that he's not going to survive a long distance relationship with this woman who he falls in love with at first sight, and it's vice versa. She is a wannabe actress, and he enrolls at Nassau Community College, where my mother went to nursing school, and then runs into my brother, who was stealing the money from Oswego, where he was going to school, and unbeknownst to her, had enrolled in Nassau Community College, and unbeknownst to him, his own mother had enrolled in Nassau Community College. And they slam into each other in the hall, dropping their books, and my brother runs away. But that's a story for another day. I think it might be on the other channel. That being said, Billy Crystal enrolls, and his wife enrolls in the theater department at Nassau Community College, which, unbeknownst to me, had a gigantic theater program. He gets his Actors Equity card there. He puts on, directs and produces The Fantastics. His brother's involved. His brother's a singer, dancer type. The other brother becomes a teacher. Richard, aka Rip, is a jazz singer, dancer type guy. And they get their Actors Equity card there by putting on these productions at Nassau Community College. Who knew? Anyway, he puts on like Godspell and Hair and becomes like a song and dance guy. And that's why when he finally does the Oscars, he looks so comfortable doing the Oscars. Schaefer, you got more than your phone. There's more to life than just a phone. June 4th, 1970, marries Janice Goldfinger. And they will stay together for 55 years. It's one of the most successful marriages in Hollywood history. And she will be along for the ride throughout this story. And to this day, right now, as I speak, they're in Beverly Hills. And I'm sure they'll contact me by the end of the week. 1973, they give birth to their first child, Jennifer. So Jennifer is born. She will later become an actress. She has some recurring roles on TV shows and stuff like that. She'll be in the Hunger Games and stuff like that. But Richard convinces, this is 1973, the baby's in a crib. They're living upstairs above his mother. There's like a second apartment above his mother's house in Long Beach, and they're living up there for 4 years. So Billy is convinced by his brother Richard to take mescaline. Now this guy does not do drugs. and he does not ever do drugs after this. And I'm going to show you a photo of him. Not yet. Don't show it yet. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to set this up. He and his brother start, doing weird things around the house, touching things. They're high as a kite on mescaline. He's not a druggie. His brother has more experience than him. His brother's older. And he takes the mescaline and he's flying on these mescaline. I assume it's a purple barrel mescaline, if that's what I was doing at the same time, which was running around Long Island at that time. Anyway, he takes the purple barrel mescaline and, they're just laughing nonstop. Mescaline is a very laughy kind of drug. I mean, really, really more giddy than acid itself. Acid was much more introspective, but mescaline just nonstop laughing. And they start to conspire and they said, let's go see the baby. And they start sneaking down the hall. And they're stopped by his wife, who just goes like Susie Essman in Curb Your Enthusiasm. What the fuck is wrong with you two? She doesn't know they're on purple barrel synthetic mescaline as opposed to powdered organic peyote, as Rondell keeps insisting on his own drug history. But I just want to show you this photo of Billy Crystal, because the wife says, "Get the fuck out of here." This is Billy Crystal on mescaline in 1973, and underneath it says "Never Again." He never did drugs after this, and it was his one and only time doing it with his brother. And I found this to be just a hysterical photo of just absolute gold. I've been that photo many times. Now, Billy Crystal will, from there, begin to work frat parties. He goes to NYU. Okay, let me just back up for a second. He goes to NYU from this thing at Nassau County Community College. He enrolls in NYU Film School, which is what I did. And I don't know if he got a degree, but I, years later, went to, I think in, I don't know, 1992 or something, went to NYU Film School. But he goes, and it's, I want to say like 1973. And these are his classmates. I just want to show you the classmates and the teacher, and then I'll tell you who they are. This is one classmate that he has at NYU Film School. This is his second classmate, and this is the teacher that they're all studying with. Okay. These three people here, they don't know each other. Nobody knows each other. This just happens to be that class. The first photo was Oliver Stone, who has just returned from the jungles of Vietnam, where he won 2 Purple Hearts and took a lot of shrapnel into his body. The first day he's there, he shoots a Viet Cong out of the tree, he told me, and kills a guy. He's then blown up a little later on and gets shrapnel on his leg, but he wins 2 Purple Hearts, comes back and enrolls in NYU Film School. He's older than the rest of them, and I don't know if I've talked about this on other episodes, but he's in that class learning filmmaking from Marty Scorsese. That was the guy with the long hair. This is Martin Scorsese. The second guy was Christopher Guest, who will later be involved in Spinal Tap and everything else and become a close friend of Billy Crystal. So this is the group, and he doesn't know them, so nothing happens. It's not like they group together or anything. Just 3 random people in his class, which I found to be quite prophetic. Now, Billy Crystal will begin to work stand-up, and his stand-up he works his first stand-up at a frat party at NYU for $25. And at that frat party, he is seen by a guy named Mora, who works for Jack Rollins. And Jack Rollins has one of the biggest comedy management firms, even at that time, was already, Jaffe and Rollins were already handling Woody Allen. So he goes out to audition, and he's doing comic bits, and he gets seen by, I think, Dick Ebersol, probably, at SNL, which doesn't exist. They're looking for talent. And what happens is on October 11, 1975, that will be the night that everyone will remember in New York City and probably nationally and on the West Coast, because that is the night of the launch of Saturday Night Live. And I covered this in the Carlin episode. George Carlin is the quasi-host of Saturday Night Live. He's coked out of his gills. But the indirect, unofficial other stand-up comic is supposed to be him and Billy Crystal. And they don't know each other. There's no connection with the two. Billy Crystal gives up a gig as a spot on the Bill Cosby special. He makes this brutal decision to give up that spot. And Maura backs him up and says, this is going to be the hottest show in the United States. And he says, I will cancel that and I will do Saturday Night Live. And he has a whole series of a sketch that would last about 6.5 minutes. And it's by himself. And he's rehearsed this thing, and he is ready for prime time. And the Primetime Players, but they're not ready for Primetime Players, by the way. It was a parody of the Primetime Players from a show called Saturday Night that had Howard Cosell as a host. Doesn't appear for a while until they mock Saturday Night, and then they're called Saturday Night Live. Yeah, it evolves. Yeah, it says NBC Saturday Night was an actual thing, and then the live was put in there. Anyway, so he's supposed to do 6 minutes. Lorne Michaels is ripping his hair out, cutting shit left and right. And they come to Billy Crystal that night. And Lorne Michaels says, I got to cut your bit down to 2 minutes. But the bit won't work at 2 minutes. It's just 2 minutes is meaningless to him. It's not going to work for the bit he rehearsed. And he starts having a meltdown. So Maura goes in and gets into a huge fight with Lorne Michaels and says, I'm pulling my client out of here, and starts threatening Lorne Michaels. And Lorne Michaels is looking for stuff to cut. So he doesn't even give a shit. And he takes his client, in this case, Billy Crystal, and they storm out. And Billy Crystal says, my career is over. Yeah, there it is in the headline. It says Billy Crystal, Andy Kaufman. And he says, my career is over. He rides the Long Island Railroad back to Long Beach, weeping his eyes out, crying nonstop all the way home. And he believes that his career is finished. So Maura and Jack Rollins begin to send him out to find other work. He doesn't go back to SNL for 9 years, by the way, people. So anything you saw of Billy Crystal is 9, 10, 11, it's 9 years later. Anyway, he auditions for an obscure ABC sitcom for the part of a guy named Jack Tripper, who in the show is called Three's Company. He doesn't get the part, and it goes to obviously to John Ritter, as many of you know. And then he does a roast in 1975. He's doing stand-up and he's doing roasts, and he sees a guy at the roast after the roast, and it's Orson Welles, and he goes up really politely, goes, Mr. Welles, I'm a big fan. And Welles interrupts him. He's looking at his notes for the roast. He hasn't gone on yet. And Orson Welles says, films, and you're this, and an innovator. Go fuck yourself, kid. That's the young Orson Welles. This was the fat Orson Welles. This is War of the Worlds Orson Welles. But the fat gobbledygook served no wine before its time, Paul Masson, Orson Welles tells him to go fuck himself for merely coming up and saying how much he loved his work. Orson Welles was probably bombed out of his mind. But in 1977, literally 2 years later, in 1977, a couple of years later, he'll be on the Tonight Show and with Johnny Carson, and Orson Welles is on the couch sitting there, and it's kind of awkward as Orson Welles recognizes him. But that being said, in 1977, Billy lands a part of a character named Jodie Dallas. And Jodie Dallas is the first openly gay character in American TV history. And it's on a show called Soap on ABC. And on this show, it's a parody. It's a parody of daytime soap operas. However, his character is gay, and it goes from long run. It's like 1977 and 1981. Books like 75 episodes, and he really shines on this thing, and it's quite revolutionary. I don't know if we have a picture of him. Maybe the cast of Soap. Let me see. Yeah, that's him as this gay character on Soap. He really stands out from this show. And he was not on Benson, despite what people might think. They're having a side chat about Benson, but he was not on Benson. That being said, he does Soap, and 1981 he tries to get out of it because he wants to do stand up, and he's going to Vegas, and he's on the weekends and flying to shows. He's opening up, like I said, for Sammy Davis Jr. and other people. And yeah, here's a cast of Soap. That's him on the far left over there. It was a very, is that Benson back there? Is that how Benson got his start? The stand-up stuff that he wants to do, and now the family, by the way, moves to Los Angeles, and as all good families do, and they begin to live here. And in 1984, I think it is, he gets a part. He meets Rob Reiner. First of all, he's tight with Carl Reiner and that crew, and he meets his dad. He does a cameo. If I recall, it was his only time on All in the Family where he plays Rob Reiner's best friend, if anybody remembers that episode. And he becomes Rob Reiner's best friend in real life, which doesn't hurt him because now he's got a part in This Is Spinal Tap. And guess who's in that? Christopher Guest, third base. Who's on first? He plays Morty the Mime. And Meathead becomes his meat puppet. And he begins to work on trying to get into the movies. And in 1986, like I said, he begins to do this movie with Gregory Hines. It was directed by like Ron Underwood or somebody, some director. He begins to do Running Scared, and they shoot it in Chicago, and it's a legitimate movie. I don't know if you have any stills from that movie, but it's yeah. Here's the two of them when they go to Miami together, looking for a bar to buy because they want to get out of the cop business, but they're kind of corrupt dicks. And he has such a washboard ripped stomach, Billy Crystal. I don't know. There's some shots with him with their shirts off. Holy crap, was this guy ripped? Now, it's easier for a diminutive person to be ripped. When you're a big fat guy, it's not so easy to get a ripped stomach. But there's Gregory Hines with Billy, and they were quite a good chemistry together in this movie. And it's quite enjoyable if anybody wants to watch it on Prime or on YouTube. You want to see ripped, Alicia? Somehow, well, there's the movie poster. I don't know if you can find that photo of him ripped, but Alicia, if you can find it, you're going to see ripped. I was quite shocked. Anyway, Billy Crystal and him, the movie makes some money, not great, but he's in the business now. He's wearing the logos of other teams, which is kind of insane. But he can't control it. He's obviously supposed to be a Cub fan there, and the Cubbies are having problems right now, and I feel sorry for the Cub fans. I'm sorry for your loss. Sorry for the Phillies. I'm sorry for a lot of teams. For the fans, I mean that. I know what it's like to die for a team. So anyway, in 1987, he does Throw Momma from the Train. Now, this is directed by Danny DeVito, who stars in it. And there it is. There it is, Alicia. Check it out. Miss Boggs, look at his stomach on the right. You want to see it? Take a look at that stomach. And I think the 34 is a Gale Sayers jersey. I'm not a Bears aficionado, but I think that might be a retired jersey. Thank you, Alicia. That's why we do these deep dives, to look at the actual stomachs of the subjects. We get into the weeds. So 1987, he does Throw Momma from the Train, which is a broad slapstick comedy. And I mean slapstick because he gets hit in the face with a frying pan. Where they, like strangers on a train, they agree to Walter Payton. They agree to eliminate their wives. His wife, Billy Crystal, plays a writer, I believe, and his wife steals his book and prints it and publishes it as her own. and she's on Oprah, and there's a very funny scene. Mike Schaefer even likes it, and he hates everything. But Oprah interviews his wife, and he hates her guts. They're getting divorced. She steals his novel. He teaches writing at a community college, not unlike Nassau Community College. And in fact, Billy Crystal at one point went back to his junior high school and was a substitute teacher in Long Beach. So it's not much of a stretch for him to be teaching writing here with this is him and DeVito with DeVito's train set. DeVito's like a retard who lives with his mother taking care of her. But he's taking the writing class because he wants to be a writer. So he's one of the people in there. He is a caretaker for his crazy old mom, Ann Waldron, I think. I forget her last name. And Billy Crystal and him see the movie Strangers on a Train, where they both agree to eliminate their wives, the Hitchcock classic. And they come up, Anne Ramsey, I'm sorry, thank you, PD. Ann Walden, I think, was a beat poet. That was close. Welcome back, Cotter. Yeah, you're right on point there. So the two of them agree, and there's all these hijinks where they're trying to kill each other's wives, and that's the essence of the movie. It goes all the way to the final scene. There's a Strangers on a Train, if anybody wants to take a look at that movie, which is two strangers on a train. But the hijinks ensue between the two of them attempting this, and it goes all the way to the final scene on the train. The point of the matter is, the movie, which cost Danny DeVito's production company and a couple other companies about $14 million to make, and it looks great. By the way, DeVito, I think I am a football fan. I'm not a Chicago football fan. I'm a Packer fan, and that's why I don't give a shit about. I could tell you every Packer who played the Bears, but I don't know every Bear. I'm sorry. So the movie grosses $58 million, which is pretty cool. Comes out December 11, 1987, a Christmas release, and it does make a big splash, and it puts Danny DeVito on the map as a director, producer, talent. Billy Crystal will get a shot, but it's not going to be for a while, because in 1987, like I said, The Princess Bride comes out, and he plays a character named Miracle Max with Lotka's wife, Carol Kane, I think, who plays his bride in The Princess Bride. The two of them storm the castle together. And Carol Kane, who was featured in the Andy Kaufman episode, is now the love interest of Billy Crystal in The Princess Bride, which puts Rob Reiner on the map as a director and a producer. And Rob Reiner now begins to put together this movie, When Harry Met Sally. And When Harry Met Sally goes out as a script. It goes out to every single leading man in Hollywood, and they all turn it down. And he can't believe that his best friend has not even called him. And one day the phone rings, and it's Rob Reiner, and he says, "I wrote this for you. Nobody's ever seen it. You got to play the part. There's nobody else to do this except you. You must accept." And Billy Crystal goes, "What the fuck just happened?" He knew that every single person in Hollywood who was a leading man had seen this movie. And they get Meg Ryan on board. They begin to work on the script. Not Meg Ryan, but Billy Crystal, Nora Ephron, and Rob Reiner begin to work on the script. And the script's got problems. I'll tell you that right now. This movie does not really hold up. If you want to look at it, somehow there's no score. They must have lost the score because there's no music in it. And I believe that this is just my hunch, because the music is missing from the movie. And I believe the last thing you do when you have a movie is put the score on it, because you got to have the movie, and then the orchestra comes in, and then you watch it and you score it and blah, blah, blah. So you're kind of under the gun there. And I think the score might have sucked, and they dropped the score, and it has no music. for the most part. And it really hurts the movie quite a bit. There are scenes that look like they're just rehearsals because there's no music or anything else. Now, this is just my guess. I have never read that. I don't know what happened to the musical score here. But the movie makes money. The movie becomes a pop culture icon. It does blow, in my humble opinion, but that's me. I just think that there's no chemistry between the two of them, and it's really awkward. Again, it's it's Nora Ephron's writing. It's not really Billy Crystal. Nora Ephron will later do much better with Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail. But she's at the beginning of her operation now. So, I mean, there's no jokes in it. There's things that are flat. I could see why they had problems with it. And I could also see why every single leading man in Hollywood turned it down, thereby giving Billy Crystal a shot at the title. He gets this shot, and he knows that Rob Reiner has sent it to everybody in the city. So that being said, it is a happy success story because the movie cost a stinking 16 million again, and grosses $100 million and comes out July 21st as a summer blockbuster. Like I said, with Barry Sonnenfeld shooting these scenes. But again, his sidekick, Bruno Kirby, is in it. And Bruno Kirby will reappear as everybody's sidekick in every movie. And Bruno Kirby and Carrie Fisher, just so you know, are better than the two leads, Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby blow them off the screen, and they were probably told to tune it down because they're such professionals at what they do that it's kind of glaring when there's four of them together in some of the scenes. That being said, look for that the next time you see the movie. If you do see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But Carrie Fisher is great, and Kirby's a pro. Kirby will later be the sidekick for everybody, including Albert Brooks in Modern Romance as their film editors and stuff like that. Yeah, here's Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby talking respectively to their girlfriend and male friend, Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, who they're trying to get them together. And there's a lot of uneven things in the script, and I could see why they had a lot of problems with it. But like I said, it doesn't matter because it grosses. Bruno Kirby was great. Jack Kirby was also a acting teacher who I knew, who a lot of people worked with. Anyway, that being said, he plays the part of Harry Burns, and it takes you to 19. Yeah, here's some scenes. Yeah, I don't know if you got any stills of this. There's Kirby over there with her. It's just a script problem. But that being said, the orgasm scene at Katz's Deli on the Lower East Side of Manhattan is something that is immortalized in pop culture, with Rob Reiner's mother playing a customer at an adjacent table, yelling, "I'll have what she's having," that immortal line. Now, that being said, Meg Ryan was so nervous about doing the scene, and she was so nervous about every scene because this woman knew that there was no chemistry and this wasn't really working. She was totally afraid to do that scene in the deli, but she was a trooper and pulled it off. She's actually wearing Billy Crystal's sweater, if anybody's curious, and on the left, and that is Rob Reiner's mother there down the chute. That sweater she's wearing belongs to Billy Crystal, but not the mother, Meg Ryan. Everybody loved the movie for that one famous scene. I didn't. But there's not much to hang your hat on in this fakakta movie. I watched it again this week, and it doesn't hold up, folks. I'm sorry if you love the movie, but this is the takeaway scene from the movie where she goes into this incredible fake orgasm after having a conversation with Billy Crystal about fake orgasms that women do there. Meg Ryan is fine. She's just in over her head with this script and production. But it launches her career, so what does she care? Okay, so in 1990, Billy begins to host the Oscars. He does 1990, 1991, 1992, 1993, 1997, 1998, 2000, 2004, 2012. And he is fabulous. He is marvelous at this thing. He really owns it. This is his family after one of the Oscars. And I think it was the one in 1991, the one that had Silence of the Lambs. He had 105 temperature. He had, it must have been 1991 because 1991. One of them, he was very sick. And he comes out and he's wearing the mask from Silence of the Lambs. That one, he had 105 temperature and somehow pulled it together to do that show, which is inexplicable. He had pneumonia and he did it anyway, because, as many people of this episode know, the show must go on. And the show does go on, and he does host and become the second most frequent host of the Oscars, other than Bob Hope. He's a long distance from Bob Hope, but nevertheless, second to Bob Hope. And he really kills it. He comes up with this system with Bruce Valanche and some of the other guys who are comedy writers to put him in the movies themselves using this new technique, which was developed at that time. Got to go away from Alana. You better come back quickly. The system puts him in the movies, and you begin to see him in Titanic. You begin to see this device. Yeah, let's see that picture. This is Billy Crystal. It must be 91 or something. The Silence of the Lambs year. That he comes out with that mask on a gurney, and he will then give the award to the Oscar winner. I think is Sir Anthony Hopkins, as a sir. Who I've met a couple of times, one of the great guys in show business out here, a real mensch, really a doll. I want to just tell you, Anthony Hopkins. Okay, so he does these Oscars, and they get the highest ratings of all time. So he's called back every year from literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 years in a row. He is Mr. Oscar, and he is able to do song and dance. He's able to sing. He's able to write these songs with the joke writers, where he every year takes the 5 nominees and puts them into these parody songs that are actually pretty funny. And he said the toughest one he ever had to do was 1991, which was JFK. And he said, how do you do a song parody of the assassination of the president? And he did it to Three Coins in the Fountain, which was a song that his uncle Gabler actually wrote, made money off of, which is another weird piece of trivia. It was 93 when he had the pneumonia. I take that back. It was 93. But he does these Oscars, and he will shine, and he feels extremely comfortable because he learns something from some of the stand-up comics in his life. And that is, it's really from Rollins, Jack Rollins and Jaffe and Mora, who tell him, when you come out on the stage to be a stand-up comic, you have to embrace the audience and go up and talk to them and not jump into jokes, which is what he was doing early in his career. And the audience is then divided by an imaginary wall. So they taught him, these managers, who were the best comedy managers in the history of showbiz, obviously, they taught him how to break that wall down as soon as you get out, so you can look into the eyes of the audience, which he does to this day, and develop a rapport with them. And he did that with the Oscars. He had no fear. It was like he was working to the 25 relatives in his living room, he said. And he owns that room. Every time he does the Oscars, he literally goes out and owns it. And we've seen other people do it. Johnny Carson, Letterman didn't do so well. Carson was pretty good. Ricky Gervais later. When they bring Billy back in 2012, they begin to complain that his jokes are too old and stale. And they bring Ricky Gervais, and then they turn on him because they're too hip and too biting. So they don't know what they want. Now we're in a mess. So the whole thing is completely fakakta. But at that time, Hollywood was at its peak when Billy Crystal in the early to mid 90s was doing this. Again, somehow Walter Payton is back in the story. Still love When Harry Met Sally. Hey, look, I'm just a guy. Thank you, Ed. Ed McLaughlin, ladies and gentlemen. the whole cast is very good. I'm just saying there, as a screenwriter, there are problems with the script, but that's just me. Don't take my word for it. I'm kind of bitter. He then, keep in mind, I just want to point this out. He does a thing called Midnight Train to Moscow. And this is a very bizarre project. A guy named Michael Fuchs approaches him with a new company called HBO. And the wall has just fallen down in 1989. And what they want, this just reeks of a CIA project. They want to go to Moscow and put on a one-man show with Billy Crystal, which they do, and put it on HBO. And there's a lot of people with him who he doesn't even know who they are. They look like sketchy intel people. They go to Moscow on a train. He puts on a one-man show in this incredible theater, the Pushkin Theater. He opens in Russian. He memorizes and has a teleprompter and begins talking to them in Russian, telling the jokes in Russian. They are cracking up. It's an exuberant. Is this the cover? I've never seen the cover of this. Let me just see this for a second. Yeah, I've never seen this before. I have a copy of it. I've never seen this. This aired on HBO and then disappeared off the face of the earth. But it is an amazing performance, and he goes to a synagogue in Moscow for Yom Kippur, which is not in the show. I'm just saying he does this with his couple of the guys from the show, including Michael Fuchs. And they're denied entry to the synagogue because they don't have yarmulkes. And they go across the street and they buy like a velvet Elvis painting and with scissors cut out velvet yarmulkes and put them on their heads and go back into the synagogue for the services. Wow. And they then, he begins to find relatives of his who never came from Russia. And he finds like 30 different crystal relatives who were Gablers, and his mother and father's side, and begins to assemble them. And they put on this show at this theater. And he says there's KGB infiltrating his group, but he's got other intelligence people from our side infiltrating his group. And he meets with Gorbachev, and he does this thing to the delight of the crowd. He has a life-size cutout of Mikhail Gorbachev on stage with a movable arm. And on the side of the stage, he's kind of rolled out, and he shakes hands with this cardboard cutout of Gorbachev, and they just go crazy over this in the audience. And he begins to make political jokes, and they're actually laughing out loud for the first time. It's a fascinating little time capsule, and his daughter is in it playing his grandmother in some of these vignettes. He does an old blues guy playing clarinet in a tunnel, a train tunnel. He did blackface quite a bit. He did Sammy Davis Jr. in blackface when a guy named Jesse Jackson was the host of Saturday Night Live. I don't know how he got away with that. He does this old black blues guy in this thing, and he did it a lot, which was surprising. But I guess back then it didn't really matter. I don't really care about it. But oh yeah, take a look at this picture. This is at the end, I think. That's the Gorbachev cutout. This is Glasnow's time. Yeah, Patrick, it wasn't that deep state, but there were elements of the same. It goes back for years. I mean, when, you know, the Moscow Ballet would come over, they had people in it. And when we sent our people over, it goes all the way back. We were both infiltrating. Look at that thing of his head. Yeah, the map on his head is different. There's also vignettes with an actor playing Gorbachev in the project itself. So there's a lot of stuff in this. If people want to take a look at this, came out in 1990, and Billy Crystal wrote and directed it for people who are looking for it. It is a little time capsule into the end of the Cold War because it's a year or two before the complete collapse of the Soviet Union, for people who know that era, like Heather does. Anyway, so comes back home, and in 1991, he comes out with a movie, I think it was directed by Ron Underwood, called City Slickers. Now, City Slickers, again, Bruno Kirby appears. The movie comes out June 7th, 1991. And he plays a guy named Mitch Robbins. Now, the plot is pretty simple. It opens up. He describes this as being put together. So this is Babalu Mandel and his partner are the screenwriters on this. I don't know if you see their credits anywhere. These are the two best comedy writers in Hollywood. Born in '76, live in Norway. Yeah, Pew Pew knows, man. City Slickers. Now, this is not the original movie poster, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if you look at the logo on his hat, it's a cowboy hat with a logo. It never happens in the movie. This becomes an issue. If you look at the other poster, if you can find the original poster of City Slickers, you will see Billy Crystal wearing a Met hat. And you say to yourself, how can this diehard Yankee fan be wearing a Met hat? Well, there's an explanation to it. He went to his corporate, here's the poster. Yeah, that's Daniel Stern and Bruno Kirby on the right. I think Christopher Guest was supposed to be the guy and bailed out or something, and Daniel Stern came in at the last minute. But his beloved corporate, disgusting corporate Steinbrenner Yankees turned down the production company for using the Yankee logo. And the Met said, we'll be happy to help you. And Billy Crystal had to wear a Met hat for the entire production. The reason the Met hat was important was because the stunt double wore a Met hat to identify more as Billy Crystal. And he said they put this production together so quickly. I don't mean that in a shoddy way, but I mean, it was greenlit literally overnight, and they were running with the Bulls in Pamplona in the opening scene of the movie. If people remember City Slickers. Now, here's some interesting trivia for you. He is trying to find the part of Curly, and he calls up a actor named Jack Palance. And Jack Palance has other movie he's got to do and can't do it. He's trying to get out of it, but he can't. So they have to look for someone else. So they contact Chuck Bronson. Here's Jack Palance. This is Jack Palance as Curly in City Slickers. He will win a Best Supporting Actor for this. But right now, he's not in the picture. So they go to a guy named Charles Bronson. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of an actor named Charles Bronson. Yeah, pew pew. This is what I do, bro. The Charles Bronson gets sent the script. Now I've had lunch with Charles Bronson on a movie set, so I could tell you he's not a friendly, warm and fuzzy guy. So they hear back from Charles Bronson, and the phone rings, and they tell Billy Crystal that Charles Bronson's going to call. And this is what they hear on the phone. This is what they hear. Fuck you. And he goes, Billy Crystal says, excuse me? And he goes, fuck you. And he goes, what? I'm sorry. What is this about, Mr. Bronson? And he goes, my character dies on page 64, you piece of shit. And he hangs up on him. And Charles Bronson refuses to do the movie because his character dies on page 64 and literally tells them to go fuck themselves for even sending him the script. Now, the reason this is funny is because Jack Palance will win the best supporting actor award for the film, and he will then go to the party at after the after party of the Oscars, and guess who's sitting on the couch with Burt Lancaster? It is none other than Charles Bronson, and he gets up and storms out of the party once he sees Billy Crystal coming into the party, which I always thought was an incredibly funny story. Now you say, well, how does Jack? No, that's Charles Bronson. He made a mistake. Okay, so his character dies on 64. Again, it is the most awkward scene in the movie. Again, I look at through the eyes of a screenwriter. Jack Palance is just dead, frozen on a ledge. It makes absolutely no sense. And it makes no sense why he leaves the movie on page 64. You want this guy to be there at the end of the movie, and it's one of the worst scenes in the entire movie. The fact that he's just up there on a ledge, dead, and Billy Crystal goes up to talk to him, and he's dead already. I don't understand it. It wasn't funny. Jack Palance is not around for the rest of the movie, and he's gone. And you know what? This guy, Charles Bronson, was right. I was at a lunch one time, and I mean a lunch for a film. We were on a film set, and somebody was reading the New York Times, and Charles Bronson was there. I think it was a movie Charles Bronson was in. Otherwise, why would he be there? And there's a full page ad for 47th Street Photo. And it's around the corner. We were in Manhattan shooting a film. And Charles Bronson said, "Don't ever go there. Those fucking Jews ripped me off for a camera." And I looked at him and he just said, "You want to fight?" And I'm going like, I really don't want to get messed up with Charles Bronson, but it was kind of an insane thing to say. But anyway, getting back to Jack Palance. Jack Palance wins this Oscar as Best Supporting Actor. He's in the movie for 12 minutes, not 64 pages. He's in the movie for 12 minutes. And somebody bought this Oscar, and I don't know how they got this Oscar, because I'm going to tell you something right now. Jack Palance wins for City Slickers. I want to give you the other runner-ups. These are the other runner-ups that year, and this is 1991 film, so it's 1992. The 1991 films this is the nominees for Best Supporting Actor. This is so Jack Palance supposedly in a fair vote. Here's the whole cast and crew. This is who Jack Palance defeated for Best Supporting Actor. Tommy Lee Jones for JFK, Harvey Keitel for Bugsy, Ben Kingsley, later Sir Ben Kingsley for Bugsy, and Michael Lerner for the performance of his life for Barton Fink. That's who Jack Palance defeated, if you expect me to believe that. And yet, that is what history has recorded as the winner of Best Supporting Oscar for 1991. That's the competition. How you defeat them with that performance is a mockery of a sham of a mockery of a sham. But that's going to be up to Schaefer and Pew Pew to figure out what I'm talking about. That being said, he does win Best Supporting Actor. And why is that important? Because when Billie Holiday was his babysitter, she took Billy Crystal to see Shane. And this kid actor said, "Shane, come back." And he never did. And that was a movie called Shane with Jack Palance, who then famously goes out and does the one-arm push-ups and says to the Oscar crowd who hadn't seen the movie, but apparently voted for it, "I shit bigger turds than you." And that was his reference to Billy Crystal in the movie. Yeah, Tommy Lee should have won that. Or Michael Lerner and Barton Fink. But it's really weird because they give the Oscar to a slapdash or a slapstick comedy, which they never honor anyway. Yeah, pay attention over there to Pew Pew. What are you doing? Yeah, Milton Berle did for sure. That being said, I don't know how he did it other than some sort of corruption. But getting back to City Slickers, he wears this Met hat, and the Yankees won't give him the logo, which is kind of funny. Years later, they want to give him for comic relief. The Yankees wouldn't even throw down with sponsorship for comic relief because they're the Yankees. They're the evil empire, and he's thrown in his hat with the evil empire. Yeah, the 92 Oscars was where he played Hannibal Lecter. Okay, May 25th, 1992, same year, what happens? A new man takes over The Tonight Show, and that man's name is Jay Leno with a long chin. The first guest ever on the Jay Leno Tonight Show is Billy Crystal, to show you the gravitas that Billy Crystal has and the friendship with Jay Leno. In 1992, he does a film that he writes, produces, and directed called Mr. Saturday Night, which is his version of Tony Clifton. This is not a pleasant film to watch. David Paymer plays his brother, who is also his manager. And it flashes back in time. He plays a comic, not unlike Tony Clifton, called Buddy Young Jr. And Buddy Young Jr. sabotages every single thing he does. And it's really hard to watch. But they thought that they had a hit film. And I could tell you right now, whoever thought they had a hit film did not understand show business at all, because it really bombs. It tests bad. Let me see if there's a picture of this thing here. Yeah, this is it. I mean, it's an amazing amount of makeup and amazing. David Paymer, to his credit, gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And that was well-deserved. And that's the only nomination or anything to come out of this movie. And there are some moments in it at the end that are touching moments as the two brothers that are quite real. I don't have time to go into it, but in 1997, he works with Woody Allen. Keep in mind, there's only one Woody Allen, people, and the only one guy who could do a romantic comedy. Is this a picture of Billy Crystal that we have here? Oh, there he is. There he is with a young Jay Leno. That is literally May 25th, 1992. Wow. Wow. Billy got really pissed when Stuttering John asked him if there. Very good, Al. I did not know. I don't know how thin his skin is, but he's a weird guy. He's a weird guy. Stuttering John can get on your nerves, as you're well aware. Somebody asked me if Stuttering John will be a guest on this show. I don't think that's going to happen. And Jackie hasn't even brought it up, but there is only one Tony Clifton or three Tony Cliftons because of Bob, Andy, and also Jim Carrey. So there's three Tony Cliftons that we know of so far. But he plays the character of Larry, and I think he plays the devil in Deconstructing Harry, a Woody Allen movie. But keep in mind, only Superman can fly. And all of these movies, by the way, and this is my humble opinion, are attempting, not the horse movie, not City Slickers, but I mean these Harry Met Sally's and these You've Got Mail, where Tom Hanks is the guy, and Sleepless in Seattle. They're all attempting to be Annie Hall. And there is only one Annie Hall, and there's only one Woody Allen. And you could see that by the level of real jokes that are in the script. Only Woody Allen can fly when it comes to rom-coms. This is just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Okay, so 1999, March 5th, 1999, Analyze This comes out, which is a huge hit. De Niro is very nervous about playing his first comic role as a mobster. And he is amazing in this, playing a mobster in a comedy. And he stays in character as a mobster, and he's worried that this is going to hurt his brand. And it does not. It makes a fortune. When he's playing it straight, he's right out of Goodfellas. I mean, it is an amazing, amazing performance by De Niro, playing it comic-wise. He will later do one with Ben Stiller, but a comedy with him. A couple of sequels to that, and he does a sequel to this. Analyze That. But this is really in the best real movie that Billy Crystal is involved in, pound for pound. Happy birthday, Lucy. She'll be at the Wallace Center tonight in Beverly Hills. This really works as a movie. Joe Vitarelli's in it. All the gangsters and mobsters you've ever seen in The Sopranos is in this. It's played real, except for the jokes and the comedy when they're in therapy. But even that becomes real because he starts sobbing and eventually talks about how his father got gunned down at a Embeddo's Clam House. In fact, every single restaurant, there's a lot of trivia involved in Analyze This, and maybe Al Gonzalez can dig this. Every restaurant scene in there was a famous mob hit place, except Sparks Steakhouse, where the mob hit was outside. But every restaurant they film in, they don't identify this, but the location was a location of a mob hit, which I found fascinating for that. And, De Niro is amazing in this. Vitarelli later passed on, one of the great mob actors who, worked for Woody Allen in a couple of comedies that he was doing. Some of these guys were really sticking their neck out, and their franchise and their reputations, doing comedy as a gangster, because sometimes you can't go back. But this film really, really works, and highly recommended. It made that summer, went into $177 million. Let's see if there's, oh yeah, this is when they're down in Florida. He's trying to get married, Billy Crystal, and he's in his bathrobe because he's dragged out of his hotel down to this bar by the mobsters. And there's the mermaids, the Wiki Wachi mermaids are in that tank behind them. and De Niro asks Billy Crystal if he wants one of the mermaids. And he's trying to get married to Lisa Kudrow, by the way. He was in A Thankless Task. Yeah, Pesci was able to pull it off. He's one of the few who's able to do both comedy and also was a rock and roll drummer, Joe Pesci, by the way. But yeah, De Niro really makes this work. And there is a real plot for his anxiety, and that's that it turns out, not to give the movie away, turns out that he was in this Barbados clam house environment when his father got rubbed out, and he was like 10 years old and he couldn't prevent it. And that's what his angst is coming from. But fascinatingly, Pesci played guitar with what's his name, Vincent, who was the drummer, I think, also. The two of them together had a band. Anyway, the movie does incredible business and then leads, obviously, which one, Ed? This one, analyze this. Yeah, I think so. I think so. And City Slickers is nowhere near this. Nowhere near this. I think this is like the best movie that Crystal ever did, comedy-wise. Analyze this. Does nearly $200 million. Again, only a $30 million budget with a megastar. Now, he doesn't want to be the star in this thing, so they were fishing around because he took, as I recall, he took months to decide this, to see if he was going to do the movie. Really did not want to be involved in this, De Niro, and then decided, I'm going to do it. And then it was gangbusters, let's go. Now, that being said, this is now we get into possibly into 2001. In 2001, there is a project that is brought to Billy Crystal by a guy named Ross Greenberg. Now, Ross Greenberg was in charge of sports. Thanks, Mike. Ross Greenberg was in charge of sports at HBO. And you say, well, how do you know that? Well, Ross Greenberg optioned my baseball movie called Murderers Row. And it was a story of Alabama Pitts, who was in Sing Sing prison, and how they formed a baseball team in Sing Sing, and they played the 1927 Yankees and in Sing Sing prison. And HBO, through Ross Greenberg, who bought the movie from me, was trying to get this made for 5 years and was paying me pretty large option money every year to keep the option controlled by HBO. And it's an incredible true story about a guy named Alabama Pitts, who was from Alabama. And got arrested in a armed robbery in New York City during the Depression, was sent to Sing Sing. And in Sing Sing, he becomes part of a baseball team. And they were called the Sing Sing All-Stars. And this was in 1927, 1928. He plays against opposing teams that they brought in there, the guards, other semi-pro teams. But in 1927 and 1928 and 29, they brought in the New York Yankees with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig into Sing Sing prison to play him. And HBO thought this would be a good movie. So did I. But then a woman took over HBO after 5 years, and they gave me back my script. So if anybody's looking for a baseball movie, this is one of the greatest ones ever thought up. And it's an incredible true story. Alabama Pitts will eventually get paroled, and he will eventually play for the Yankees in the minor league franchise out of Albany, New York. But that's a story for another day. I don't want to get into that right now, because Billy Crystal is brought this project by Ross Greenberg called 61. And does Billy Crystal have his own money in these things? I don't know about that. Not really how the thing. Did Billy have his own money in these movies? I doubt it highly. It's not how the system actually works out here. That being said, 61 becomes the story of 1961, the race against Babe Ruth by Mantle and Maris for the 61 Yankees, the home run race. And Maris is not considered a Yankee, quote unquote Yankee, because he was a Cardinal or he was not Babe Ruth material. Let me put it this way. He comes over, Mantle's revered by all Yankee fans, and Maris is not revered. He's kind of a tough guy to get along with. They were roommates that summer in Queens. and Billy Crystal cannot wait to do this project. Roger Maris will develop cancer, by the way, and die from the cancer. And Mantle will develop a cirrhosis of the liver and will die of alcoholism, not in this movie, but in real life. The casting of it, Barry Pepper, who we had seen in Saving Private Ryan, signed on early. This is a picture of Billy Crystal, Barry Pepper, Yogi Berra, who would not step foot in Yankee Stadium for many, many years. This, I presume, is in Detroit at the old Tiger Stadium, which they used to double as Yankee Stadium, because Yankee aficionados know that Yogi Berra had a huge falling out with the Steinbrenner family. So I assume this is in Detroit. And on the right is my old friend Thomas Jane, who came into Billy Crystal's office smoking French cigarettes and wearing no shoes. And Billy Crystal didn't realize that that's how Tommy rolls. So Thomas Jane comes in, and Billy Crystal asks him if he's ever played baseball. And he says, sure, I played it in high school. So he has long hair. He was in Boogie Nights, as people know at that time. But HBO doesn't know who he is. He will later become a star at HBO for Hung. People ever saw that series. So Thomas Jane creates a character with the help of Billy Crystal, and they show the video to HBO, and they flip out and they go, who the hell is this guy? And Billy Crystal says it's Thomas Jane. So Thomas Jane lied to Billy Crystal. He's never played baseball in his life. So Billy Crystal hires Reggie Smith, and many people remember Reggie Smith. He played for a bunch of teams, played for the Dodgers. He was a fabulous outfielder for the Dodgers and some other teams that I don't recall offhand, but he played for multiple teams. And Reggie Smith took Thomas Jane under his wings. He had a baseball camp out in the valley here in LA, a baseball training camp, him and his son. I think they still do to this day. And they took Thomas Jane under his wings for 2 or 3 weeks. And Billy Crystal comes out after 3 weeks and says, what happened? He sees Reggie Smith. And he said, what happened to Thomas? And he goes, I got some bad news for you. He's not around anymore. And Billy Crystal's heart just sinks into his pants. And he goes, what are you talking about? And Reggie Smith whistles, and out from center field comes running in Mickey Mantle. And it's Thomas Jane with the exact running stance, the limp, every single aspect of Mickey Mantle. That's my friend Chris Bauer on the extreme left, who will play the catcher in the movie 61. Thomas Jane will not only learn to hit like Mickey Mantle, Reggie Smith will teach him to be a pinch hitter, a switch hitter. And he swings from both sides of the plate, lining balls to left field and right field. And Billy Crystal almost drops dead. He can't believe it. He's got the accent down. He's got this Oklahoma accent down, and he becomes Mickey Mantle. And it is shocking to this day. I was just talking to Tommy yesterday. He's sick as a dog, by the way. Here's a picture of Mantle and Maris as Barry Pepper and the Mick, Thomas Jane on the right. It was quite a task to learn how to switch hit, not just switch hit, but to switch hit as Mickey Mantle switch hitted. It's just fantastic to talk about this, Pew Pew, because the Yankees are playing for their lives right now. And the Yankees meant so much to Billy Crystal to be able to direct this movie, which has a fantastic script. It is a fantastic baseball movie. He played for the Red Sox. That's right. Reggie Smith, 17 years. Absolutely one of the great players. Played the game the right way, except he went into the stands at Wrigley Field to beat down some fans. Thanks, Mike. But the situation for Reggie Smith is that he was able to teach Billy how to teach Thomas Jane how to become Mickey Mantle. And the sniper from Saving Private Ryan, Barry Pepper. Alan, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you in Dallas. Alan, thanks. The situation becomes that these two guys are in the race to defeat Babe Ruth's 60 home run mark as a Yankee, and they're feuding. But in this thing, Mickey Mantle is depicted as a drunk which he was. And he will, thank you, Alicia. Yeah, he's great. The Expanse is fantastic. Highly recommended. Tom directs some of the episodes late in the second season, I think. Anyway, so Mickey Mantle and Maris are racing for this home run thing, and they shoot it all in Tiger Stadium, which was closed down at the time. But the production people came in and literally redesigned the stadium. And Billy Crystal loved this project so much. And I'll tell you this, they went and screened it for George Bush, the younger, in the White House. And after George Bush, this, I just want to say this. They brought in a relief pitcher in the game. And I want to say his name was like Hank Aguirre or something. And George Bush whispers to Billy Crystal in the middle of the movie that Hank Aguirre was a lefty, Billy, not a righty. And Billy Crystal knew that President Bush knew baseball inside and out. And Billy Crystal was apologetic because the actor supposedly playing this relief pitcher did not show up that day. And they had to throw somebody out there who threw from the other side. And George Bush, to his credit, caught it in 5 seconds. Now, that's a baseball fan. That's a baseball fan. Ray Liotta famously told me that he had to live the rest of his life in shame because he batted from the right side of the plate in Field of Dreams as shoeless Joe Jackson. And he never lived it down, and he blamed the producers for not telling him. Just so you know what happens if you don't do what's the real facts in a nonfiction movie. So anyway, so this movie comes out, and George Bush loves it. And at the end of the movie, in the screening room in the White House, Thomas Jane, as Mickey Mantle, says, "I don't know about you guys, but I got to piss like a racehorse." And George Bush says, "So do I." And him, Billy Crystal, and President Bush go to the bathroom together and take leaks together. Mickey Mantle, Thomas Jane, Billy Crystal, and George Bush talking about the movie. Thank you, Blitzen. And that movie, which I highly recommend, and Billy Crystal, to his credit, has a friendship. He developed a friendship with Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle ended up at the end of his life just being a greeter at Las Vegas gambling hotels because he was banned from baseball with Willie Mays because they had taken contracts from certain elements in the gambling industry as greeters because they wanted the money. And Billy Crystal was contacted by the Hall of Fame and HBO that they were going to do a TV segment about the Hall of Fame, and they wanted him to interview Mickey Mantle at the Hall of Fame. And Mickey, because he had such low self-esteem and because he was an alcoholic, refused to go to the Hall of Fame ever. And Billy Crystal attempts to talk Mickey Mantle into going to the Hall of Fame, which should have been a documentary by itself. And he does succeed in talking Mickey Mantle into going to the Hall of Fame quite reluctantly. Let me see what this picture is here. That's Casey Stengel with the actual Mick. Wow. Wow. That's a Triple Crown. Yeah. 56 was the Triple Crown year for people who follow that for Mickey Mantle, the greatest year of his life. Anyway, Mickey Mantle is a fall down drunk by this point in the 2000s. And Billy Crystal meets up with him. And the reason that he bonds with him, the way he bonds with him, the way he breaks through is the fact that they both lost their fathers around the age of 15. And Mickey Mantle was afraid that he was going to die and played without his father ever seeing him. And Billy Crystal felt the same way. And Billy Crystal breaks through the veneer of Mickey Mantle by bonding with him through the death of their mutual fathers, which is pretty heavy. And Mickey goes to the Hall of Fame with him and allows Billy Crystal. There's the Mickey Mantle. It's probably from his card, one of the cards. He goes to the Hall of Fame with Billy Crystal. And once he gets up there and experiences it, they're driving in a car and he says, "I ought to do this every year." And Mickey says, and Billy says, "Yes, you ought to do this every year for the good of the game." But he has alcoholism, and he gets a liver transplant, and it doesn't go well. He develops a cancer after that, and he dies from that, from his drinking, and the alcoholism and the problems related to it. And he does quit near the end of his life, but it's too late to repair the damage. And they have a Mickey Mantle Day, and Billy Crystal goes to Mickey Mantle Day, and he comes out on the mound, and he's making speeches about Mickey Mantle. And they're showing clips of Mickey Mantle, and he's now supposed to introduce Joe DiMaggio, and Joe DiMaggio's in the dugout. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, Joe DiMaggio. And Joe DiMaggio comes out and he says to Billy Crystal, what the fuck am I supposed to do out here? And Billy Crystal says, I don't know, just wave. So Joe DiMaggio waves and goes eventually back into the clubhouse. And he comes up to Billy Crystal. This is after the event is over. And he punches Billy Crystal as hard as he can in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him. This is an older Joe DiMaggio. And he growls the words, greatest living player, to Billy Crystal, who reluctantly forgot to announce that Joe DiMaggio was introduced as the greatest living player. And he's on the ground, knocked down by this maniac, Joe DiMaggio. And there he is, Joltin' Joe, the classy Yankee Clipper, one of the unclassiest Yankees of them all. Just a piece of shit. He will later refuse to sign a baseball for Billy Crystal's wife years later because he's got a contract with a company. I mean, just a weird series of events. The guy's a piece of work, but nevertheless, Billy Crystal will get involved in 2008, for his 60th birthday. They approached the Yankees to make Billy Crystal a Yankee for a day. And George Steinbrenner agrees to this, and they draw up a contract to make Billy Crystal a Yankee for a day. And he signs the contract, and he will lead off and DH for the Yankees. This is him with Derek Jeter. This is in Tampa for spring training against Mahomes of the Pirates, March 13th, 2008. Derek Jeter is all of the Yankees were in on this. They all supported this. They literally gave Billy Crystal a contract. He trains with Reggie Smith at the age of 59 to get in shape to do this one at bat, one game, DH, lead off against Mahomes, who was an all-star pitcher. I don't know where he is now for the Pirates. He studies Mahomes and hires Reggie Smith to train him. And he has a batting cage in his house, of course, Billy Crystal. And Billy Crystal was, like I said, a legitimate ball player at the time, and he was in high school. This is Billy Crystal, and this was not this particular game, but this is Billy Crystal in some, celebrity pickup games. So he is nervous the entire day. And this is a real game, albeit it's spring training, but he is going to DH and lead off. He's not going to play the field. The Yankees make an agreement. I think Girardi is the first year. He was the catcher for the Yankees, but the first year manager. And there's Billy Crystal. This is from the game itself. Yeah. Girardi will be the manager, and Billy Crystal goes in to suit up in his locker, and he finds the following problems in his locker. His belt has no holes in it. His socks, the toes have no space at the end of his socks. The socks break off. His shoelaces have been sewn off and break in his hands. His hat is 3 sizes too small, and he can't find his glove. This is all done by the Yankees. Yeah, this is Billy Crystal waving to the crowd. This is in Tampa at the the minor league affiliate where certain teams played this year. I think Tampa actually had to play there this year because the roof blew off their stadium. Okay, so Billy Crystal pieces a uniform together, goes out there. I want to remember who did this to him, because he gets up against Mahomes. Yeah, this is the national anthem. Wow. Wow, these are crystal clear, beautiful photos. Again, this is 2008. Billy Crystal was there for the 9/11 game, by the way, where George Bush fires a strike in at Yankee Stadium right after 9/11, one of the great moments in history. Absolutely fascinating, whether you like him or not, to go out on that mound and do what he did that day. Anyway, so Billy Crystal literally sees 6 different pitches from Mahomes. He fouls one down the line. He swings and misses at one. He works the count to 3-1, then 3-2, and eventually strikes out. But nevertheless, the Yankees themselves all congratulate him for seeing 6 pitches from an all-star major league pitcher. I know this is hard to understand for people who don't know the game, but for a guy at the age of 59, a civilian, to foul him off, hit one down the line, down the right field line, and to eventually succumb to a strikeout, but see 6 pitches, is a badge of honor at the major league level. And they all congratulate Billy. Here he is coming out, taking the standing ovation. The greatest moment of his life, he said, was being a Yankee for a day. And you got to tip your hat. One of the great, great moments in anybody's life, if you're a fan of the game. And Billy honored the Yankees and himself that day by seeing the 6 pitches. You got to tip your hat to that. But it's not over yet, because he goes into the clubhouse, and I'll end with this. I know we've been on here for a couple hours. He goes into the clubhouse and he said, "Who did that to me? Who is the mastermind behind these pranks?" And it was a guy named, I want to say, LaTroy Hawkins, who was a Yankee. And they said, I could be wrong with the name, but LaTroy Hawkins, I think, was a guy on the team at the time. And he says, "How can we get even with him?" So the clubhouse manager, the equipment manager, says, "Well, LaTroy just bought these brand new shoes that he's proud of. They're $700, Billy." He says, "Why don't we get a drill and drill through the shoes and screw them into his locker floor?" And Billy goes, "That's a great idea. Why don't you get that?" So he gets a drill, opens up LaTroy Hawkins' locker, and finds these $700 dress shoes and drills through them with screws and bolts them to the bottom of the locker. And in the shoe, Billy writes a note, and he says, "Don't ever fuck with my stuff." And that's how the episode ends, my friends. With Billy on this baseball card. There's LaTroy Hawkins, I think it is. But there's a baseball card of Billy that his wife took a photo of and turned into a baseball card with him swinging. I don't know if we have a picture of that. If not, maybe I'll find it afterwards. There's also a picture of Billy Crystal in a police uniform with Mickey Mantle at Cooperstown. There's the baseball card. There's Billy Crystal. Wow. That was taken by his wife. This was his 60th birthday, by the way. So it was 2008, 60. He's still chugging along. Wow. What a great life. What an incredible life, that he had. Every single thing you could imagine, from soup to nuts, happened career-wise, family-wise. He's a grandfather now. He's got 2 grown-up daughters, 2 beautiful daughters who've married and had children. His wife is still with him, Janice, to this day in Beverly Hills. One of the longest successful marriages in show business history, 55 years. Tip of the hat to these guys. And yeah, these are some sketch he did on Saturday Night Live later with Christopher Guest as the Minkman brothers. But tip of the hat to this relationship with him and his wife. You really got to hand it to them, staying together in a town like this, as a couple, raising a successful family and a healthy family. This is the photo I was talking about. This is at the Hall of Fame. This is a very rare photo. This is from one of Billy Crystal's, actually. That's the Mick on the left, and of course Billy Crystal playing the guard. They did a little sketch together. But Mickey never believed he should have been in the Hall of Fame, which is, of course, absurd. One of the greatest players of all time. And to my, my preference over Joe DiMaggio any day of the week. And there's Joe D. That's from the day I was talking about. That's when he punched him in the stomach, not on the field, but in the clubhouse after this event. What a piece of work this guy was. But this is some of the celebrities that he took photos with after he did a one-man show called 700 Days. Billy took it to Broadway. It was the longest, highest grossing show in Broadway history, of one-man show. 700 Days is the name of the one-man show. I highly recommend it if you could ever catch a video of it. 700 days was the actual amount of days, actual amount of Sundays he spent with his father. It chokes me up he actually goes into his relationship deeply with his father. 700 Sundays was the actual total amount of Sundays he spent his entire life with his dad. Absolutely fascinating one-man show. And this, of course, like I said, this is from the opening in 1992. Anyway, if anybody has any questions, I mean, the Gabler family, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out here. If you like and subscribe, I think that'll help you enjoy it. His brother, Joel, became an art teacher in high school, the same high school they went to. His brother, Richard, just so you want to know, just some follow-ups. Richard Crystal became a TV producer of things like Life's Most Embarrassing Moments, Planet's Funniest Animals, and he did a documentary called But Seriously for Showtime, I think it was, for the history of stand-up comedy. He also produced a film called Murder by the Numbers. I don't know if people remember that, with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Gosling, which is not a bad little film, in 2002. His brother moves into producing TV movies, TV shows, and various things of that nature. Life's Most Embarrassing Moments. Yeah, but I'll tell you something. He has a relative, like Burns Crystal, who his daughter did a documentary about, who is another family member who was he was ordered by General Eisenhower to paint the landing at Normandy with oil paint as a rendition of the landing in Normandy, this uncle. Yeah, so, I mean, my dad played for 3 years. The story started where, okay, that's great. That's great. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot to this story. I'm sorry it took so long to get it all out, but there's a lot more to it than I could even get to. I mean, we're doing it for a couple of hours. If you want to like and subscribe, nobody's going to kill you at this point. But we also have a sponsor that is this incredible coffee. I forgot to tell you about this, Tribal Coffee, which is a new little, I guess that's me down there. There's my my logo. It's not Pat Mahomes. It's a different one. Anyway, this is Edward. Thank you so much. You met him. Wow. He's a super nice guy, according to everyone. I've never met him, but Ed, I wish I could have met him at some point in my life, and I still can. Hopefully, I will through this show. I mean, I would love to talk to him. I've never even been to the 9/11 museum because it's just too painful for me to go. I really, as a New Yorker, it's very difficult to even listen to the portions of his description of what happens on 9/11. But the amount of entertainment, Ed, that Billy has brought to people is enormous. It's one of the most perfect show business careers in American history. And I mean that in terms of box office. I mean that in terms of no scandals. I mean that in terms of marriage, children, grandchildren, performing, acting, singing, doing stand-up. It's almost a perfect career. And Billy knows this, and his family knows this. I'm not saying anything out out of turn. But I don't think the American people really realize, which is why I wanted to do this episode, because no man has had more perfection in his career. And he obviously had flops. I mean, there's Father's Day with Robin Williams, who's very close to him. There's all kinds of movies that bomb, but that goes with the territory. You can't control all that. But it's Christopher, thank you so much for the memberships. His overall career has been almost a perfect game. And people know what that means. I hope he contact. Yeah, I would love to hear from him. I hope I did this justice. You know, his relationship with Sammy Davis Jr. was unbelievable. And I just have to go into this for a couple of minutes. I'm sorry, just give me a couple of minutes here, because his relationship to Muhammad Ali was his most prized possession of his entire life. Billy Crystal made his bones, not unlike Dice Clay did and others doing impersonations. Obviously, we saw it with the Andy Kaufman episode where he does Foreign Man and turns into Elvis. We saw it with Dice where he does Jerry Lewis and he turns into John Travolta in Grease. What Billy Crystal did was not unsimilar to that. He did this for the first time at an awards dinner. He got a call from a soon-to-be best friend named Dick Schaap, the sports writer and sportscaster, to be the comedian at a awards dinner for a guy named Muhammad Ali. And Billy Crystal did not know Muhammad Ali, but Billy Crystal was a huge boxing fan. He had seen boxing up at Kutcher's as a kid, and he worshiped Muhammad Ali. He worshiped him as Cassius Clay, he worshiped him as Cassius X, and he worshiped him as Muhammad Ali. He goes to that awards dinner and in the course of 2 seconds destroys the entire room. And how does he destroy the entire room? He not only does his impersonation of Muhammad Ali, he does a sketch of his impersonation of Howard Cosell interviewing Muhammad Ali, and he destroys the place. And he destroys Muhammad Ali laughingly. And Muhammad Ali and him become best friends. And this friendship lasts the entire lifespan of Muhammad Ali. Not only does he become best friends, his mother worships Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali will literally be behind the scenes and off stage at a number of Billy Crystal's performances. There they are together. He will later really work on this impersonation of Ali, where it is impeccable. They go to the funeral of Howard Cosell, and they're at the first row. This is the two of them. And Muhammad Ali, this is really inside the game. Muhammad Ali whispers into Billy Crystal's ear, and he says, "Do you think he is wearing his toupee?" And Billy Crystal says, "No, I don't think so, Muhammad." And he says, "How is God going to recognize him then, Billy?" And he's suppressing this laughter, Billy Crystal, at the funeral of Howard Cosell, who they both worshipped. The three of them together got along so well. And Billy Crystal's mother, this is Helen. That's lipstick that's on the head of Muhammad Ali, by the way. And she embraces him as if he was a member of the family. The relationship between, yeah, this is an emotional episode because of fathers and baseball and Long Island and Judaism and a lot of other stuff, man, that would take me a long time to explain. But yeah, it is an emotional episode because of all these different bullet points, and the holidays and everything else that's going on. But the relationship, and everybody loved Muhammad Ali. I mean, I also growing up, it was just to be in that time period at that time, the Thriller in Manila, the Rope, the Dope, the Mummy. But, more than anything else, there were elements of Ali that you could really, you had to be there for them. And it's just one of these other non-baseball sports things that Billy Crystal got involved in and helped out behind the scenes with a lot of different charity work and to a lot of different people that I'll never know about and nobody will know about, including Sammy Davis Jr. But anyway, get the coffee. Where was I? Yeah, I was talking about the coffee, the tribal coffee. Secret code Mark G. Again, I don't know how secret it is at this point, but Heather, you might want to try it. Mike, try it. Pew pew. I don't know if they're going to ship it to Norway or wherever Scandinavian land that you still live in. But if you take a cruise, maybe you'll get to Dallas by the time it gets here. Alicia Boggs, thank you for everything. Heather, thank you. Ali took on all comers, never ducked anyone. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Oh, here's the way to get the coffee. I'd highly recommend the coffee, which I'm drinking right now. This is Gatorade, but the coffee is in the coffee cup. And tip of the hat to Billy Crystal for leading a perfect show business life. I think that's all we got today. I want to thank Mr. McLaughlin up there for his wonderful donation to the cause. Edward McLaughlin, of course, with a super chat. Two things I have to do. I'd like to meet Billy Crystal, and I'd like to go to the 9/11 Museum before I run out of gas. But now it's playoff time, my friends, and we're going to have to switch. I'm going to have to put on my Dodger hat and get serious. Nancy, welcome to the new membership. This chat is great. Everybody seems to be going on. There's a new thing we're going to do next week, which we're going to work on, called This Week in Show Business History. And what I'm going to do is go through the week in showbiz history, and we're going to talk about the various things that happened each week in showbiz history. And they could be varied. They could be births. They could be deaths. They could be movie openings. It's going to be a show where each week, and it'll be like from Sunday to Saturday, whatever that is next week. Thanks, Nancy. And we're going to go through the events of show business that week in show business history. And I'm from Philly. Oh, Joe, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. Well, you got the Eagles, Ed. You got the Dodgers are overrated. That would be hard to do. Overrate them is hard. We'll see how far they go. I hope the Yankees make it, because last year was just absolutely the greatest World Series I've ever seen since the worst week of Billy Crystal's life, October 6th, 1963, which was the greatest week of my life, October 6th, 1963. Good night, folks.